All right, well, welcome everyone that have joined here into this webinar. It's been a few months since we've had one of these ForecastBuilder webinars. You know, all the fun stuff of leave, et cetera, going on during the summer months and trying to work on various projects. So we've got about 20-ish slides to this presentation. So we'll get started. So today's topics, obviously there's a tech order out right now that the ITOs need to complete here this month. We'll go through some of the technological changes that are occurring with this install. Then into topics on summer development and research that's been taking place. We'll talk a little about IRMA, where we're heading with ForecastBuilder. A little bit on Hazard Builder, as well as hazard simplification, and then we'll open it up to questions. So, some technology changes here that have occurred with this latest install. The first, and I mean, even this was occurring right before our tech order was released. We were actually shooting for trying to get the tech order out before the MDM version 3 came out, but we kind of struggled at that a little bit, but it's out there now, and so those changes are in place to get AWEPS and GFE configured correctly to process most of MDM version 3. There's still some elements that need further changes to AWEPS, and those will come in the 17.2.1 build. Pro Vice President was added to the cron for everyone. It was something that we missed in April, and I think this is a good time to remind that these top-down grids, like Prob Vice President, Max Web Hold Aloft, Prob Refreeze, you'll see those start populating when the temperatures start to get less than 40 degrees. That I know there was feedback requested to put a pause at the end of the weather creation step, so that's now in there, so you can look those Hazard Builder grids before the ForecastBuilder procedure finishes up. There's also the option added to go back to the main menu at any time, and that's partially to address the back button issue. It's still not perfect, but at least it's something that you can go back. And there's also a new tool added in there for frost that uses a University of Kentucky study that incorporates a lot of different things: temperature, dew point, sky, and wind. So a lot of good stuff. I did some testing of this in May, and it looked really nice. So definitely utilize that when we get into frost season here coming up. Some other changes, a couple here in the probability of thunder, which we'll have a topic on here in a little bit. A QC check has been added. There was one of these QC checks within the MERT, within the weather creation process. Now that QC check has been brought backwards a little bit here into the, when you go into the weather creation part, the POP thunder grids will get adjusted to ensure that they are less than or equal to the POP. The POP thunder values within 20% of the POP will get the POP verbiage. This is a new item to try and address some of the low probabilities that are in the model, in the model, you know, SREF, MOS guide stuff, because of the calibration that's in those. And again, I'll talk more about that here in a moment. And then we've had some issues with some time steps and data dropouts. There's some fixes in place for those. Included snow level, both in ForecastBuilder and SuperBlend. That's mostly for the mountain offices of Central Region and as well in the Western Region. There's a new probability weather type grid added for dry thunderstorm. This has been added primarily to help resolve dry thunderstorm issues in the mountains. There's still research going on how we're going to utilize this, but there's definitely a need for it to kind of separate out the dry thunderstorm from the regular thunderstorm. Some updates to Hazard Builder for offices that are utilizing the EHWO web graphics. There's been replacement code added to allow Hazard Builder to do this through another program that's called the StackGym, which allows you to create images out of GFE. And then option 2 in the weather creation step, not to wipe out the severe and hazard blood grids. These, if you're utilizing Hazard Builder to update the EHWO pages, and maybe your severe threat has ended, but the current population process, if you allowed it to overwrite, would still show the severe threat example, like the 1Z day one outlook doesn't update anymore after 1Z. I'm just trying to show some example here of why this option was added in here. Again, it's only for those offices that are currently utilizing Hazard Builder to update their EHWO pages. And finally here is to fix verification, because there was an IRMA adjustment in regards to updating max T, min T, and it broke some of the verification stuff. So we've had to adjust some of the creation times of some of the verification to account for that. Talk a little bit here about National Blend. The National SmartNet team here, and I especially want to throw thanks out to a member of both the SmartNet team and the Grid team here, Jerry Wiedenfeld, the ITO at Milwaukee, worked hard. I mean, put in countless hours here to get AWIPS and GFE prepped for MBM version 3. He's also been working with Raytheon to help for AWIPS build 1721, so it can process the elements that AWIPS currently can't handle. An example is the PROVICE present grid. So yeah, when that build comes out, which will hopefully be here during the fall and winter months, there's still some issues being resolved in that build. Then we'll get that out, and then you'll be able to see the full National Blend version 3 in AWIPS. On the ForecastBuilder VLab site, there is training available about the production of the new elements that support ForecastBuilder in MBM version 3. You could feel free to check that out. It's really short, it's like 10 minutes, and really good info there. I'm still on the first slide there to put on this slide. On the probability thunder, something we noticed, here during the summer months has been in this increase in utilizing 100 values to put in the pot thunder grid. A lot of that's just for ease, to force showers, the probability of showers to be the same as the probability of thunder. And again, I think that it's nice and simple, but just subjectively and looking at past like aviation verification, for example, this approach likely results in over forecasting of thunder. And I think that to some degree is why there are these probabilities produced from the SREF and the MOS guide to help give you a little bit more maybe detailed areas where thunder is more likely versus another. These probabilities are calibrated, and you have science and statistics applied. I'll actually go a little bit into the science aspect of the SREF ones. But as you all have seen, because of their calibration, there's another issue. They tend to be lower than what we like to normally utilize. They don't seem to nicely fit our current definitions and the way we like to view it in the we like to have numerous showers and thunderstorms, for example. So right now, at least in the interim, threw in a little thing here about utilizing wherever the probability of thunder is within 20% of the pop, just give it the same verbiage, something that's close. It will really kind of help just delineate what's a more likely thunder occurrence versus another. Yeah. So really to go on to this topic of utilizing probabilities from the guidance, I thought I'd just take this was a case from July 12th, and where we had a little squall line come through our forecast area here in La Crosse, but in a general broader area here too, affecting the state of Wisconsin into Michigan. So just on top of this, I have 1 hour observed lightning shown here. It's just cloud ground. How would you assign the probabilities in this case? I know typically we like to apply this idea of simplicity, just throw 100 on, ensure the showers equal to thunder. But if you do that in this situation, it's probably, or it is a significant over forecast. So you've got really just two areas where that concept applies, that relatively speaking narrow. The rest of it's just general shower area. It was just some little food for thought. But I do want to stress here that previous image was showing cloud to ground. And so as I go into these next two slides, some interesting stuff here on thunder. If you want to go into like an idea of requirements, or what you want to get back to like definition, what is probability of thunder supposed to mean? And even if you go into the directives, there's nothing that really states it in 10201 or 10204, which are our main directives for NDFD and ZFP and all that jazz. So if you go back to the FMH1 reporting requirements for thunderstorm, it's really whenever, and I've highlighted this specifically here, thunder is heard. So the real answer here is total lightning versus cloud to ground is what we want to be putting in probably in our grids. And all this boiled down to the grid team here ended up having a discussion. We've had this feedback come in from the field, and so we was like, all right, we're like trying to figure out how to resolve this. So we brought in SPC and MDL on a conference call on how to resolve some of the stuff with probability of thunder. First, to discuss the SPC SRF thunderstorm probabilities, they were developed to kind of fit the SPC needs. And for their definition, they're looking at cloud to ground, one within, about 12.5 kilometers of a point or a 40-kilometer grid. What is nice, we've had the feedback as well to have like some sort of thunderstorm tool that would incorporate CAPE. That's here. It's in these probabilities. They're, in fact, even more so. The CAPE only, looking at like that, growth region for hail with that 0 to -20, utilizes LCL as well as equilibrium level temperature, and also this QPF greater than 1/100th to kind of help delineate a little bit more about where the thunderstorm activity would be. If you have a moment, a presentation that SPC gave to the grid team is available on the ForecastBuilder VLab site. It goes in a little more depth on the probabilities as well as some verification, and the verification looks really good. But again, the verification is set for this definition of one or more cloud to ground lightning flashes. So going into those probabilities, so not only do we have the thing about being calibrated, causing the probabilities to be lower than what we're kind of normally used to, there's also the cloud to ground aspect that pushes them lower. For what it's worth, LAMP is working on a more calibrated product with total lightning, and that's expected to be implemented in October. There's a link here, and I'm going to pull that up for you just so you can kind of see a little bit of difference here. On the left is what's currently in operation. On the left is a 2-hour probabilities. You see these in the non-precipitation type step of ForecastBuilder for the GLAMP. What's on the right will be now a 1-hour probability, and you can see that the values tend to want to go higher than what we currently have. Again, I think this is looking at total lightning, and they've done some other work as well. And then there's also these various categories down below for reference that they've worked on as well to kind of help look at as a categorical approach. Maybe these categories could be something that would be useful for us as well for helping with improving probably a thunder. So this is supposed to again go into operations in October. We won't have to do anything, I think, on our side. This should just go right in place. You'll see the GLAMP produce hourly output in GFE. So be looking for that again in October. So on the call, we discussed producing a more calibrated product to what we need for MBM version 3.1. You know, it's like that MBM version 3.1, for what it's worth, is going to be on the SBN probably May-June timeframe. Development, what's most important here is the development must stop by January. So we're trying to see if we can sneak this in. But further collaboration will continue on helping improve that. So to finish up this probably Thunder discussion, the interim plan here is we're just going to try to utilize those probabilities. Again, there's science included, albeit, again, we recognize the issues with the probabilities being low because of calibration. Some of it might just need if you can utilize, there's that stretch skew tool that can be helpful. The next forecast builder upgrade, we'll try to give both approaches as options in the non-precipitation type step until these issues can be further resolved. I think what we learned here in this during the summer months was good, and we got a lot of good feedback. And I think this just helped improve communication amongst various parts of the Weather Service. So kind of limping along a little bit, but we'll get there. There's also the probability of severe. This is still something that's being experimented with, especially that 30% probability that's required for T+. You can utilize day one SPC outlooks and as well as Hasbell grids, because those automatically include the day one SPC outlook to help delineate areas of severe. There is SRF calibrated severe probabilities. You see those in the non-precipitation type step of Forecast Builder, but they struggle to get to that 30% threshold. And this is coming from SPC, that these calibrated probabilities are even further in infancy. They said apparently they tend to over-forecast. Despite the fact that they have a hard time getting to 30%, they do tend to over-forecast, and that's just because they're apparently heavily CAPE-weighted. There's no CAMs included yet. They are hoping to include the high-resolution ensemble forecast when that becomes available. So we may consider revising that 30% value down, but we're not sure what value. Certainly, if you want to email the NWS Forecast Builder or post a note on VLab on the VLab site, we'd love to hear your experience with probability severe, anything that you may have found useful. Let's talk a little bit about snow level. Again, this was added to Superblended Forecast Builder with this latest upgrade, mainly for Central Region Mountain offices and Western Region, and a lot of thanks goes out to those who have collaborated on this project. There were a lot of individuals involved to get this going. Even some of that was ongoing before getting this into Superblended Forecast Builder with the NBM side. And really, the definition here for snow level is wet bulb zero height plus 0.5 degrees centigrade. And just for those that are on this call from out in this area, I do want to show you how this works for using snow level if your forecast builder configuration is set as such. So these are sort of the definitions with where rain would be assigned, where you're looking at snow level above topography plus 800 feet surface wet bulb. I won't read all these, but these are the various various criteria. And this information is also documented in the Forecast Builder procedure documentation. Eventually, the plan here is to migrate over to the top-down process as model vertical and horizontal resolution improves. So the snow level is kind of currently being seen as a stopgap, because some testing of the top-down process last winter, like up in Great Falls, for example, has found there were problems with it. Again, is a lot of it due to just resolution issues over the terrain. And lastly, some other regional forecast builder changes is with Great Lakes improvement during the past winter. There's been stuff put in the National Smartiness to help improve the probability of precipitation. Then we put the neighborhood pop technique into SuperBlend to help improve pops, to bring them up a little bit. Now there's further work to improve the QPF side of things because just models, especially the broader ones like the EC, for example, have a hard time producing enough QPF because of the mesoscale nature of lake effect snow. So this should help a little bit, especially on days 2 through 3, as noted here. Let's talk a little bit about IRMA. I want to kind of stress this point about IRMA because IRMA has a big influence on the SuperBlend and National Blend when it comes to bias correction. And one of the points here is, I know quite a few offices have noticed this, and so that's why I'm bringing it up in the webinar, is that you may have noticed like bodies of water showing up, and a lot in the SuperBlend, National Blend temperature forecast, be it max T, min T, or T, and a lot of that can be tied back to the IRMA and the start in HRR guest field. Both the IRMA and HRR groups are aware of this issue. A lot of feedback was pushed to the group, and in fact, both, again, this is the EMC as well as the IRMA. So there is a potential fix. I'm not sure when it's going to get into place, but just know that there's something being worked on there. Additionally, there's I saw this yesterday or today that there's a SUE group working on how offices can blacklist OBS in the RTMA IRMA. So hopefully we'll see that coming in the near future, because I know we'd like to be able to do that from the field. Like here was an example, and this is the one that I had forwarded on to the IRMA people, where Mississippi River there going right through our forecast area, and you can kind of see all these higher resolution areas of lower values, and those depict to some degree a little bit larger body water areas along the Mississippi, and you can see other lakes that kind of stick out as well. For this specific case, the La Crosse high was 96, the IRMA was 84, and honestly, throughout the summer, we've had this bias correction to knock down the La Crosse temperature yet. And different levels, of course, depending upon the day. But I just wanted to bring that up. So, in essence, I would encourage everyone to look at IRMA as part of like daily QC. Make sure it's coming out with values that you think are pretty reasonable, because again, it impacts SuperBlend and National Blend. And thus with the ForecastBuilder using SuperBlend right now, that's that stuff goes into your forecast. So if you notice issues, email the RTMA info list, the address there shown, and that can help get things fixed there. Different topic here on research with sleet and freeze and rain. Dan Baumgar and myself here at La Crosse, we've been using an independent data set provided by Heather Reeves out of NSSL. She released a paper about on precipitation type, and we're just going to hereafter call it R14. But when we looked at the actual data, the classification of precipitation type versus observations has been challenging. As a result, it's been this huge time sink, literally. We've been spending a lot of time with trying to figure out what is like the actual precipitation type. As we went through some of the data, there were cases where there was no weather in the METAR. Cases where the precipitation type in the METARs or next nearest METAR didn't match the P-type. Definition of the observed P-type. For example, how big of an area can you utilize around a RAOB to consider it an actual observed P-type? At the sun release time, and take like for example Roanoke, their upper air site versus like the Blacksburg and I think the Roanoke observance system there. So it's been interesting and again time consuming. For what it's worth, again, we're running verification on both the top-down technique and the brick-going technique. That's all been set up. We're going through various charts, and in fact, sometimes running this verification has brought us back to the observations, finding issues. So this has been again a kind of a slow approach because we want to do it right and don't want to move the current process too much. You know, in essence, end up doing more harm than good. So again, we are looking at this and hopefully get something out here in the next next month or two. But here are some results that we can provide. Pure sleet, finding that at a rail site at launch time is rare. There's tons of cases in this data set, but we've only have 11 for just pure sleet. But what is common is sleet to be mixed with another precipitation type. So I think this goes to show that the weather grids are going to continue to be messy in mixed precipitation. That's all there's to it. Something also of note is that prob ice present has been helpful to both the top-down and brick-going techniques, and it's been super great for freeze and drizzle detection. Definitely the probability detection of freeze and rain would drop without it. I've been wanting to I'll want to check later today about how many cases prob ice present has helped in the POD, like if you removed it, what would happen? But definitely that grid is mandatory. Yeah. And the curves that we have in place, they may need slight adjustment. Here's the current curves that we use off of max wet bulb loft. These were again originally created for max T, but because max wet bulb, almost by definition, is going to end up being colder. These curves may need some slight adjustment based upon the research that we've looked at so far. So the plans for ForecastBuilder here for the future. There's been a recent RLC meeting. So pending final approval of an agreement, the plan here is that beginning 17Z October 2nd, that all Central Region FOs will use the full version of ForecastBuilder. Of course, up to this current time, most offices are already on that. I mean, this will be going, mostly the bigger impact will be into the mountain offices of Central Region. But even there, again, a lot of us were using the light version going into this, so it's just making that next step. And we'll utilize to populate all elements periods 3 through 14. We're going to keep the initialization times the same. The one note there is that SuperBlend can or really will have some inconsistencies from time to time from office to office, and that's due to model receipt times. And specifically there would be the Canadian model could be missing, and that's just because of the way the model's grabbed. There's more deeper details going on there, but just note that that's usually the cause if there's ever an inconsistency. Benefit, though, to having everybody utilizing the full version is that we'll have even greater consistency than we had even this past winter. From both forecaster office to office, we can all again keep building up the current process in place. And since I referenced October 2nd up above, I thought this would be a good time to put a reminder here that on October 1st, if we don't get another webinar out before then, expect the POPs to be able to have higher values in SuperBlend, and that's because we switched that neighborhood technique, basically a function of that we start headed into more stratiform precipitation, and stratiform precipitation we want to boost up the POPs a little bit more. A little bit more on future plans, fire weather grid creation that's currently being tested out with the mountain sites. We're looking at this for this winter, elements like mix and height, transport wind, and haze. Let's see here, as far as I know there's been probably discussion upon this. When are we going to switch over the national blend? That's still under investigation. When we're going to switch over to make that the common starting point. The major benefit on this is it's much more reliable and consistency and less maintenance. Obviously, too, to have a switchover, we have to wait until 17.2.1 is installed everywhere, because currently there are elements like prob ice present that we don't have yet in our in AWIP's GFE. We will upon that build installation. But one of the major challenges is the timing of the MBM. It's a little later because it's waiting for ensemble data. So again, this is all underneath discussion. What we're going to do here. So keep looking forward to that. Again, more on this will be talked about in future webinars. Almost done with the topic, the webinar here, and talking a little bit about Hazard Builder. Just the kind of reminders here that it fully integrates your entire forecast and national center forecast, like the SPC convective outlook they're brought in. So it makes this a great situational awareness tool. And the future hope is it will become the EHWO, and this is why the like this latest tech order that went out allowed offices that are currently using the EHWO to replace that with Hazard Builder. So again, you can also view these Hazard Builder grids as a target of opportunity tool to help you identify where more of your time should be spent. And let me back up here. On the right is an example of the EHWO page at Springfield, where they're utilizing the Hazard Builder to populate their EHWO portion of their website. And then lastly, here's an example of Hazard Builder during severe weather, at ARX here. You can see the various grids light up as there's a slight risk in this case for some severe weather. One last slide here, and then we'll go to open discussion to talk about hazard simplification. It starts October 2nd. Hopefully, a lot of you have seen there was a series of 5 webinars. It's, I would say, partially connected to ForecastBuilder, and partially because I was involved in the project. Some of the grids ForecastBuilder produces, such as sleet amount, can be involved. Can help provide a little additional detail within the WSW that gets produced out of the formatter. And also, ForecastBuilder basically ensures that all the grids are needed for the formatter as well. For your reference, it's also noted in the hazard sim presentation, some of the changes, the Blizzard Watch and the Lake Effect Snow Watch are no longer in existence. Starting October 2nd, they are now put into the Winter Storm Watch. The Freeze and Rain Advisory, Lake Effect Snow Advisory, those go away into the Winter Weather Advisory. And then this is a Central Region specific anyway. The Lake Effect Snow Warning goes into the Winter Storm Warning. Nice thing about HazSimp is that it will provide a consistent segment format from office to office, great for media partners that are involved with multiple offices, so they can see the same information. Again, myself and the Eastern Region Text Formatter team will provide the formatter for all of the NWS around September 1st. And that is the webinar, so I'll open this up to any questions. I'll look at the I'll look for hands here. So just raise your hand, and I will answer any questions, be it the ForecastBuilder, IRMA, NBM, any of those topics. Let me see. There is a questions pane, so I'm gonna view the questions pane. I'm gonna try and answer it via that. So Phil Schumacher added here a question about the 30% value as enhanced risk SPC. Many offices started putting severe into the grids with a slight. Has there been a discussion as to when to add severe into the grids? That was when we came up with the 30% value, that was sort of the idea, but I do agree that probably a lower value is appropriate, but then the thing is we got to try and figure it out with respect to the like the SREF calibrated probabilities, because I noticed one day that the probabilities were up like 20%, 15 to 20% most of the day, and that seemed odd. So I hope that answers that question. Again, if you have certainly if you have ideas on how we might go about that, I'd definitely send those along. Another question here on October 1st with having higher values using this neighborhood approach. So right now, the current technique that's in place from April 1st to October 1st utilizes, just for the most part, a simple QPF versus pop, QPF to pop idea. From when we've done some past verification studies that seem to work out pretty well for during the convective season. But during the winter season, that approach was proven to be too low. And during the last winter, we utilized this approach called the neighborhood, where you look at, for every grid point, you look at grid points around that, and to see how many have a couple hundredths of QPF in them. I believe it's 300ths is the threshold value, and if that is exceeded, then you get at all grid points you get 100% of probability. Jerry, are you on?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to add in that regard? I think I got that.
Yeah, and there's actually a max too. I use a max between the two pops. So if the QPF pop ends up being higher than the neighborhood pop, it'll use the QPF pop instead. So it's really combining the two methods. And where this is hoped to have helped is sort of mostly around the lakes, the Great Lakes with lake effect snow. It'll certainly have an impact outside of that, but that was where we were really striving to try to help the lakes with giving them some higher pops.
Cool. Okay. Thanks, Jerry. Yep. Hope that answers that question there for you, John. Does anybody else have questions or
yes, Andy.
Feel free to raise. Oh.
Yes, Andy, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, can you go back to your slide that talks about limiting the pop and the probability of thunder? Basically just the opposite of that, where you look at the definition of thunder and you set the thunder as less than or equal to the pop.
Yeah, let's go to that. Or actually, we'll just go to the text
So in a way, although I understand why you're doing that, I think you realize that there's lots of situations where people hear thunder and it doesn't rain. So from a scientist, I understand the practicality of doing that because of the weather grids, but in essence, based on the definition you showed, it's certainly reasonable for the thunder probability to exceed the probability of rainfall. Even in the southeast U.S., I can remember several situations, and I think we all can understand, even in Jackson, Mississippi, where it thundered and didn't rain. So it's not just a western region type scenario with high base thunderstorms. It can happen pretty much anywhere. But again, I know why you did that, but it was an interesting thing that I noted.
That's a great point, Jeff. And like as I said when we got into this call, but it was last week, and going into this total, being the fact that we probably need to be looking more at total lightning versus cloud to ground for our thunder grid. That's yeah, that does seem to suggest that, yeah, maybe that limited approach is not the best way. To go.
So, and then you had another slide where you talked about blending the various inputs to for your thunder forecast. Can you go to that?
Yeah. Let me see. We got that one. Oh yeah, there we go.
Okay. So here, and I appreciate you talking about the issue with LAMP and a different. So I have talked to SPC about this idea. I mean, after all, it is the national blend of models, and if we just pick SREF or LAMP, it's not really what we were looking to do. We were looking to utilize all the guidance. I realize some of the guidance will be better than others to indicate thunder probability. However, some of the, I tend to be a little bit open to things like you've suggested, but I'm running into some issues with people worried about having differing definitions to assign probabilities. For example, LAMP is using a 10 or 20 kilometer grid box and total lightning, and SPC is using 40 kilometers and CG. I don't think there's any harm in us doing testing of blending what you suggest there. We also have access to 12-hour probabilities as well, and we were thinking that we would provide, if possible, 1, 3, and 12-hour probabilities so that. But the issue, to me, the issue is if you're already going to do it in SuperBlend, I'm at some point I'm going to have to get some buy-in to try to combine the probabilities, at least test them out and see how they verify. But I'm getting a lot of resistance that we should not do this blending. Of course, it's really the same argument I've heard for years about blending things together. Currently, we blend together 3-kilometer resolution models with 100-kilometer global ensembles, and
yeah.
So we're already mixing and matching things quite a bit. But I would, if anyone on the call wants to email and give me feedback, I would love it. But I think that if we're going to keep true to the spirit of blending as many models as possible, I'd rather not choose LAMP or SREF, and that's it, because I want as many models to impact this as possible. And your thoughts from the field would be appreciated. And I might pose the question at some point to the SSD chiefs and let them reach out to everybody and see where we want to go. But I need to make that decision pretty quick in the next month or so.
Yeah, and currently, just to make sure you understand, we're not actually blending thunder grids at all.
No.
For a lot of the reasons that you were pointing out, that they are so different. So currently, we're not blending them in SuperBlend. We're having to choose because that's what we have available. When and if we start populating with the national blend, we'll populate with whatever you guys provide for the thunder pop or a categorical type thunder.
No, we do have a on-the-fly blend for within ForecastBuilder for these at various times, and whatever's available at a time step. But obviously, for the most part, there isn't much for a blend. the only time that there's much of a blend is probably in the very short term, when you have at least all three very available. But it's not much of a blend after that.
Now, one other thing that, just since there's a pretty good audience on here and I would love input on, is we're already as you've probably noticed, and what we're hearing as well, is that the 3-hour SREF probabilities tend to be lower than what forecasters are expecting and are comfortable with. And you talked about the mismatch by, you might have an 80 or 90 pop 12, and then the maximum probability may only be 40% on any of the 3-hourly SREF probabilities, and that's causing discomfort in building our traditional zone forecast style 12-hour weather grids. But this is a huge issue corporately because we've sort of went down the path of these floating pops and this precipitation potential index where we scale hourly or 3-hourly pops to 12-hour values. But a truly calibrated probability of a thunderstorm on a 1 or 3-hour time scale is, a 40 or 50 pop is a huge pop, or pot in this case, probability of thunder. But so we're talking about going forward with calibrated probabilities, but if the forecasters are uncomfortable with the low values, then the customers are uncomfortable. We do have a problem, and we need to find a way to navigate around that through either we accept that we're going to go calibrated and have low numbers and educate forecasters and customers, or we have to stick with this idea of scaling everything to 12 hours. And right now, we're really discombobulated as an organization on what to do, and that's probably why we haven't rushed into completing the forecast as the NSF study said, and putting in lots of probabilities, because we're really not comfortable doing it in the way in a calibrated way. So I know I'm sort of rambling here, but I want you all to know that it's hard for me to build the national blend until some of these decisions are made. And I'm all ears, and I think everybody's all ears on how we might proceed. So that feedback would be really appreciated as well.
Cool. Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, those have been some discussions that have been going on here, especially over the last couple of weeks, about this, about thunderstorm potential index and things like that. So yeah, give Jeff feedback. All right, any other questions out there? Questions, comments? All right, if not, this presentation has been recorded, and I'd like to thank Greg Noonan there at Central Region for doing that. And with that, we should have another maybe another tech order here coming up next month for the ITO side. And that's all I have. So we'll see. Good luck, and we'll talk to everyone later.